what I'm going to do is try to um, figure out where the sense of the alphabet arises from. No, we are going to presuppose the existence of a something that reflects the spirit so as to create form, sensation, something that is of a geometric nature, mathematical nature. And associated with that is the sensation of sound. So, what sounds arise due to what? That is the exploration. We take the alphabets themselves as a starting point of exploration, as in go by a sequence of alphabets and try to figure out what they do in the Hegelian sense, or to borrow a phrase from Hegel, in the phenomenology of the spirit. But what I am going to do here is mainly because it's an initial exploration and uh, we'd rather see the alphabets in context so that we may derive sense from the meaning, the semantics in which it occurs, and draw hints from that. So the exploration moves through something recently discovered called as the Swabhavika Sutras. Swabhava means self nature. So, Swa means self, and Bhava means manifestation. The sound Bha is like an explosion, like Bhava is expression, and the self expression, the sutras, or the aphorisms of self expression. So I'm going to take the words and search for hints while I make these slides. On the surface, this word could be thought of as uh, you move your thoughts with that you needn't worry about. Ashochian, Anushojasitva. Ashochian means that which you needn't think about. Anu means analogous in alignment with. Shojasi means you worry, you think over. Uh, Shojasi is SI ending is like I think second person singular modification of something whatever. And Tvam is you. So, but if we get into what this might actually be saying, R is like an initiation into awareness or into a particular mode of consciousness that is processing this geometric phenomenon. That is the initial expression of a 0 point. The sound is the axial evolution. So then something else one could notice is a double negation occurring with the two alphabets N and N. Na na an ashochian anu na nushojasito. So this describes the movement of the spirit itself. It proceeds attempting a view and then it negates itself into itself, holding information of that view. So this 0 point driven mathematical structure that has formed has operators that allow for that allow for these movements that are exemplified in the unique alphabetic sounds. The operators themselves can have dimensional views, multidimensional views. Uh, like you have a differential del operator or del squared in that sense. So the sounds can differ based on to what depth one is viewing. The spirit forms or attempts the formation of a stable geometric view through this double negation. It is moving forward into the view that it attempts to construct, and it returns in the Anushojasi that forms itself, or the sutra is saying, form yourself that way. Tvam. Ashochyan Anushocha Sitwa, by engaging what is in the spirit and bringing it forth to a geometric view, which more like a which is more like with the negation, a laser sharp return into the spirit, negating its properties, allowing the spirit to manifest its own force in this particular geometry. So we've got ideas regarding A and Sha. Sha could be thought of as, uh, let's think about it, and show to see. Uh, I would say something to do with the uh, seeking of the direct of the geometric sense that aligns with the spirit intent, the permutations that can be held of a geometry that is at a point in a spin cycle that is generated by the n going forward and the n going backward. Na and nu, a and u, like the first two letters of the ohm sound, a, u, na and nu as in ashocha na nu shocha si form. Ka is clearly the duality that occurs as it enters this geometric structure. First of all, the duality is needed to keep the view of the void, the principle of symmetry. Va is that space is the operator generated space. That space exists because of the operations at the zero that allows the projection of the awareness, that allows the rejection to. This in two different spaces are the the plus and the let me speak of projection. Addition, the operator addition is the principle of superposition. So that is what projects the awareness into a space. That is what superpositions uh, these these views or whatever. In a sense, you'll have to understand that or no, because I'm speaking uh, on a view, on a vision, I would say. uh, and the same sense, because the plus operator to hold these mathematical objects, these vectors, need to have the operator currents go outward, and the into operator needs to have the operator currents go inward. But the but just as a space needs its symmetric counterpart for the void sense to be kept, an operator needs its symmetric counterpart. So plus and the x thing into thing are in fact operator inverses of each other. These operator inverses act together so as to keep the awareness stuck in a particular kind of a view. That is the generation of the notion of a space. Somehow it's cyclic closure forming. It has to, because a space needs to enter a space is to differentiate what it has, a differentiation operation. But if one is to enter a space differentiating its contents, it would break down. So at the same time, an integration operation has to happen. So the as if you take a series, the if a series is a a finite series, a finite polynomial, a differentiation or an integration operation would alter it. So it exists like something of a cycle in which the integration and differentiation has to occur simultaneously. It is finite because, like I said, it was constructed by the awareness starting with the 0 point R. With the axial processes SHA, what SHA might be, we'll get into later. It might have to do with the spin dynamics, the collapse moments, and so forth, dimensional. Uh, uh, so the closure formation of this thing, which differentiates and integrates simultaneously, the beginning and end being at the zero, is the M. Now there are two kinds of symmetry enforcing forces there at the beginning, which is the one of which is the additional symmetry enforcement, which is zero, the zero thing. Zero is across which the additional one and minus one exists in symmetry across the zero. Likewise, there is a similar kind of symmetry that is needed, that is due to the presence of the into operator, the inward driving of the current, the holding of things together so as to create a compound thing. Uh, and uh, what was I talking about? I had a operator current driven memory works. So yeah, the that kind of reflection, these two kind of uh, reflections, and these two kinds of processes associated with uh, integration and differentiation. Integration is associated with the notion of uh, plus, as in the generation of an additional axis. Uh, it is also associated with the holding together of different axes, and the same awareness process run in reverse, as the awareness cannot disconnect it from its source. The inverse operations also ought be there. So these things together tends to form what are structures available to the spirit to view itself. So the spirit can engage the game of reality with the spirit, so to speak, not so lost in the geometry, not so lost in the view. So the construction of these structures is somehow one related to denying of the properties and view of the spirit itself, second constructed to the game spirit itself, so that we can game the world, so to speak, in an ideal sense, in the spirit. So this phrase, gata soon, gata soon, soonscha. Gata means moment. Gata soon, na gata soons. So moment and its negation together. Movement and its negation together tends to form something very solid, something in the spirit, a geometry that is almost quote unquote without. So that is implied in the meaning of the phrase as well. Gada means that which moves. Agata, agata means that which doesn't move. Like in the surface sense, it is trying to say what moves and what doesn't move, the voice doesn't worry over. Now, getting into the alphabetic sense, and or the ideophonetic sense, what the awareness itself is doing with these sounds, what the spirit itself is attempting formation of through the operator dynamics of these sounds. Gada Suna Gada Sunsta is a particular kind of structure where the negation operator acting centrally, the in sound, is so profoundly acting, forming the geometry, reflecting the awareness back to the spirit, forming the geometry, reflecting, intensifying the process, such that it is in the spirit. It is not something moving outside the spirit, or you get the idea. It becomes a very solid geometry, so much so that it can be thought of as moving and non moving, or moving into the void, uh, or a void reflecting into the spirit, or a void structure, a void sense generating structure due to the symmetries. It keeps a sense of the void. And at the same time, this voiding jewel, this voiding diamond, has an axial symmetric process that is reflecting laser like the awareness back into the spirit. This might be associated with two factors, the zeroing property and the unity properly. Earlier discussed in the previous slides. We'll have to get into the details of that afterwards. I'll have to think about it. I'll have to discover the details of that afterwards. We'll get into it. Here we again have na anushojanti. Na anushojanti means what na is a negation. Anushojanti means to think along in that pattern. Moving or the unmoving forms the wise doesn't think along in terms of worry, in the sense of worrying about all those things. That is the surface sense. But here you have the na operator and the nu operator. Na is the negation itself, the end sound. You cannot make the end sound without adding a vowel, like a or u. Here, the n, a is na is prolonged with a dual length, like na. That is the symmetric spaces, and nu. It could be its denial, absorption back. If a is here integrating out higher spaces, O is differentiating into a lower space. Uh, its dynamics need to be thought about how that occurs. Uh, so this na and nu process and its axial structuring, axial scan, which is the show. R plus U is the O sound in the Pan-Indian grammar. So nanu shojanti. Non-Shochanti is the nature of movement of energies in the geometric structure that has formed. Could be the inner spin structures that allow different permutations of the senses associated with the category to be formed. Like one could say sadness, there are so many shades of sadness which are associated with spins within spins of the structure that is formed. Also, the permutation strings that are associated with scans in a particular n0 dimension in this kind of geometry or math that I'm working on to understand early stages. The last sound NTI is again the if ta is time space, t time and space, the dual structure, and t is the negating out of it. You're into time and out of time, almost at the same time, which puts oneself in one's own nature as a spirit, as the god of space time, because it's one's own spirit that is structuring space and time there by the projection operation and the absorption operation taking oneself up. There is this particular kind of holding that is attempted, or the holding, the ideal holding in which one is neither into the time nor outside the time. So the different points in time arise in a particular dimensional scan in a particular depth of spin due to the spin structure generation. One can enter at any point. There is no linear scan if you try to understand what I'm saying. It is structured by the awareness. The awareness can withdraw itself. The awareness can project forth a different topology. The awareness can, in the spirit, hold the information. For in the first place, it was the spirit that attempted to view itself in a kind of geometric precision without this kind of structure forming involving a conscious or aware double negation. Initially, what happens is the spirit loses itself, it disperses itself. Uh, a quote from the Bible like, "Who does not gather with me disperses." Of course, these things, Bible and all these scriptures that we have are not the original ones, but there are quotes from uh, ancient traditions. They have completely engineered it out, all those things. The um, like esoteric Christianity does not acknowledge what who is acknowledged in usual Christianity. You can research that. Uh, so the this initial attempt, when one loses the sense of the I into a false sense of either the ego, or like just toppling over into the spin scan structure, and the awareness kind of spinning around at one of its points. All of these phenomena makes it difficult for the spirit to view itself, to form a structure which can, staying out of the structure, dynamically form and reform. The for the way the awareness would describe that force dynamic is na nishojanti, because in na operation, the new operation, shojanti, as the different uh, spatio-temporal configurations attempted of spin, so as to arrive at the ideal meaning map into the meontological, into the spirit sense, which was projected into geometry, which, which was in a dynamic attempt projected into geometry. Because the spirit, if you think about what the spirit is doing, it is continually attempting an ideal. It is attempting to see an ideal, like we are working in the world to continuously generate an ideal, in the awareness altering configuration, so that we may view an ideal and feel good. What does that mean? So that we can feel the spirit. So that process seen outside of the spin scan structure is called the non-Shochanti dynamic structure. Or it is a way to, it is a set of operators describing or animating the spirit, one could say, but you know, uh, it cannot be spoken of as disconnected from the spirit either. The word Pandita means Panditaha here, I think it's a noun, and it refers to Pandita means wise, like a learned person, a scholar, something like that. But again, uh, this the n sound is associated with a unit, and very similar sounds are associated with a formed structure. I think Pandita, a scholar, is somebody whose kn- knowledge systems are formed, ideas are formed, well formed. Uh, I think that might be the time one of the etymological origins. I'm not sure, but uh, this here is referring to a formed structure in the meontological that can be accessed at will to repeat this process in one sense, or this whole structure that was formed. Uh, like in some traditions, uh, they say punya skanda. Again, the skanda as a unit. See the similarity in sound, pandita, da sound. Punya as in the punya means virtuous, skanda means units. Uh, Formation of these units, these jewel-like structures, uh, related to the what? The idea of the attempt at generating ideals in reality. If one were to take a whole universe, form a jewel out of it, give it to the absolute, these kinds of ideas are found in the scriptures, right? So, uh, of different traditions. So here the Panditaha refers to the unit that is formed. This unit formation is the st- study of the Seta Sutras, possibly, given this is the first statement. Uh, and uh, also, these being operator dynamics is like code added to one's own awareness driven machine, which can generate different forms of supernormal uh, awareness drives, supernormal forces, effects, whatever. So that's basically the discussion on a few ideas associated with the first one of the Subhavika Sutras. I'll stop this discussion here.